Hi.
Hello, Sophia. Hello, everyone. Well, we're extremely happy to welcome all of you here with us today for the first episode of this week and months long public program of talks and conversations. We of course have a bittersweet feeling because this is replacing what should have had been the physical biennial. We were very happy and looking forward to welcome all visitors from the 14th of May until mid-October. But as you all know, plans have changed, and we had to reimagine everything that we had scheduled. So instead of this public program that would have happened in Andresala in Riga for the biennial, and suddenly it all blossomed, we have the pleasure now to be online. And this online life that we have been all going through for these past months will certainly be something that we will have to go through within the next weeks and months again. But still, this is not a bad compromise, because this way we can be very fair and very dear to one of our main concern, which is to be accessible, which is to be democratic, and which is to engage in a very big assembly of voices and thoughts and perspectives. So all of this public program has been thought after a glossary of words, 21 words that have been extremely important to think the overall project of Riboketu. Today we are starting with endings, and you might find that incredibly funny to start with the idea of endings, but the idea behind that was to revise this history and this obsession for ruptures that our culture might have. And instead of thinking in terms of before and after, instead of thinking in terms of categories and divisions, how can we rather think in terms of metamorphoses and mutations? How can we understand this period of big upheavals as a period where we can instead think of new chances, of new beginnings? And humanity has been for a very long time obsessed by the idea of the apocalypse and the end of the world. The whole biennial project and the exhibition that will happen, and the movie that will happen around the exhibition in August and September, was precisely interested in that. In how do we, instead of giving up, how do we, thanks to the artists, thanks to different voices, thanks to thinkers, learn and get to reimagine positions, perspectives, and feelings. So, without further ado, I will let Sophia speak. Sophia Lemos, who I would like to warmly thank for her hard work on putting together all of this public program, and for bringing these voices that are extremely important for all of us to listen to today, because we all believe that they stand for thoughts and perspectives that are highly needed to cure the spirits when we are so busy curing the bodies. So, Sophia, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. As Rebecca mentioned, I'm Sophia Lemos, and I'm your co-host for this evening. And I want to welcome everyone. I'm really humbled and thrilled to see us all gathering together, even if virtually, and to celebrate together what would be the launch of the public programs of the Riga International Biennial of Contemporary Art. And C.A. Conrad, the poet that I'm so excited to introduce right now, is really one of these great, such realists, one of the greatest realities and minds of our times. So C.A. is an award-winning poet. They're influenced by Eileen Myles, Audre Lorde, Alice Notley, Emily Dickinson, and they write poems about defiance, about personal trial, about resilience, and through these, how they build together bridges between worlds ending and nascent ones. C.A. is the author of 9 books of poetry, of essays, including the latest book, which is called Jupiter Alignment, Somatic Poetry Rituals, forthcoming this year. Also A Beautiful Marsupial Afternoon, Echo Deviance, Somatics for the Future Wilderness, and While Standing in Line for Death, which won the Lambda Book Award. CA is also the recipient of a 2019 Creative Grant, as well as a Pew Fellowship for the Arts, a Believer Magazine Book Award, a Gil Op Book Award, and many more. They regularly teach at Columbia University in New York and at the Sandberg Institute in Amsterdam. A fantastic documentary, I really recommend this. There's a fantastic documentary of their work called The Book of Conrad and is available on their website. So thank you again. My heartfelt thanks for joining us and connecting today. And please join me in welcoming CA Conrad. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here today. It's been a very exciting idea to even be in Riga, and of course I'm not in Riga, I'm online, but I hope one day to be visiting Riga. When I was first invited to visit and give a talk, I thought, well, I would, especially for this online talk, I wanted to spend a little time talking about why I do what I do and when I started doing it. So I'll be very brief with that. I grew up in a factory town in rural Pennsylvania. That's very important to the story. And my family, as factory workers, they were extensions of machinery most of their waking hours. And so what that means is that they needed to find a mechanism to help them cope with the fact that while they're at work all day long, they're not very happy about being in the present. Let's put it that way. What happened was as a child, I realized that I needed to have a different kind of life to be creative. You know, I really wanted to have a life as a writer. And as a teenager, I ran away to Philadelphia to have that life. And I feel very good about that decision. I was writing for many years. I began writing in 1975. I ran away to Philadelphia in the mid-80s, 1980s. There was something that happened in the 80s where I started to think, is there a problem with my life and in my writing? Because I could not maintain the present tense when I was writing for a while. At first I thought maybe it was an issue because I had come out as an adult, a young adult in Philadelphia at the height of the AIDS epidemic. And I thought, well, maybe that was my problem because it was so traumatizing seeing so many people die around me. But I soon enough realized that it wasn't that at all. It wasn't the trauma of that. It was something that I learned as a child many years ago. And my family, in order to deal with being extensions of machinery most of their waking hours, like I had mentioned earlier, they created a mechanism, a coping mechanism where they shut off the present. So when I speak to my family, I can hear it in their voices when they're talking. They're either depressed about the past or anxious about the future. They don't really know how to turn the present back on when they leave work. But the thing is, I realized that I could create a situation where I would create a ritual that would anchor me in the present. That is exactly where I went with this situation. It was a crisis when I finally realized what the problem was. But the crisis was soon averted when I realized the actual reason for everything that was happening. And so then I went forward and created rituals to anchor myself in the present. The first one that I did, I ate a single color of food for a day for 7 days. I realized that if I orchestrated the information around me, if I orchestrated the reality around me, that it would keep me focused on exactly what I was doing as the day was progressing. And I wasn't stuck in the past. I wasn't even concerned about the future at all, even for a moment. At the end of the day, from the first ritual, where I ate red food for a day and wore a red wig, I realized at the end of that day that it most definitely worked, meaning that I was present all day long while writing that poem. Meaning also that there is no way at any time in my life that I would have written that poem for any other reason. So the red day gave me the experience that I needed to go forward for the future, to be able to have a different relationship, not with just my writing, but also my life as a writer. With the goal in mind to remain present, I believe that these rituals could do other things. And what I mean by that is, these are ancient technologies, poetry and ritual. They've been used for many centuries. And I thought, well, I know that people have been talking about how ritual and poetry can heal the body, can heal the psyche. I wasn't so sure if it could, frankly. But I had a situation that happened when I was, a handful of years ago. I had a boyfriend named Earth. We met at ACT UP demonstrations in the 1980s, and we had many friends die of AIDS. But we don't know who did this. But he was brutally tortured, raped, and murdered. He was he was covered in gasoline and burned alive. Now, the thing is about this man who I love very dearly, it just completely changed my life. The situation, and the police covered up. It's a very long story I don't want to get into, but it destroyed my life for years with depression. I believed that I could do a ritual that could actually cure that depression, and I did do that. This is the web page that I work with, and I put all of the rituals up here. Let me move this over to the side. Okay, so I have this book cover up here because this is where the ritual is, it's in this book. And the ritual is called Mount Monadnock Transmissions. So this is a photograph of my boyfriend Earth, who was murdered. The last time I saw him alive, he gave me this crystal. Now, the thing is, this crystal was in his pocket for the last year and a half before he handed it to me. Now, the thing that we know about crystals is that they have a current that is very usable, of course, in science and industry. As you know, it's used in clocks and computers. I'm sure you're well aware of all of that. Piezoelectricity is a study in quartz crystal technology that I feel like is something that is being looked at more seriously these days. And also, the thing that is most important to me, though, for this ritual is that crystals hold on to information. So, meaning that this was in his pocket for a year and a half. Therefore, it was a library of his movements, his conversations, his feelings. It's his days, basically, in a crystal. What I did was I put the crystal under my hair wrap pointing down, and then I would swallow a smaller round crystal, smooth crystal. The reason I would swallow the smaller crystal is because I wanted to use that as the worker crystal. So the job of that crystal was to absorb his information from his crystal and embed it into my blood, tissue, and bones. And within a week, I was feeling completely different. It was successful. It made me so happy, I can't even tell you. There's something about being a writer and living your life for years and enjoying that process, and then these crises appear and finding a way around them. The thing is about both the writing and the rituals, they have shown me that they can find solutions to all of the problems that I've been having, at least in my life. Let me read 2 of the poems from that ritual. Altogether, there were 27 of these poems that came from it. I'll just read 2 of them. A spider's web is made of digested fly brains, wings, hairs, legs, tears, pheromones, attracting more flies, dissolving us into the endeavor of love. Hold me to your song, it is delicious. Hear you one more time in middle of night. Tooth it open. Love all unloved parts without pause. Dear ghost, flickering with flames that no longer hurt, deflated lungs expanding, you say they can only burn a faggot once. When you died the way you died, it was contaminating. A new danger of being lost and insecure. But reality can never be avoided forever. At the same moment, who is afraid of whom? The killers or my beloved, or guilt of my continued song? Desire is not what we achieve. It's a knife often carving the wrong way or racking in the alchemy of a mood. I should never trade youth for poetry's resonance of aging. But I can put every poem I ever wrote in a pile and burn them if you would appear on the other side. These are ants that are for another ritual I want to talk about. But before I talk about them and that ritual, I just wanted to say that when I was first invited to be part of the Riga Biennial, I was very excited, and I started looking online at things in the city to do, not so much just to be a tourist, but where to write poems and to possibly have create rituals with people in Riga. And one of the things I was most excited about was your marketplace. There's big central market in Riga. There are webcams that are available all throughout the city of Riga that gave me a clear view of what people are doing, and that central market in Riga looks like a fantastic place to be writing poems and to create ritual and things to do with those different smells and the things that are going on. So one day I hope to come to Riga, and if any of you would like to join me, I would like to spend some hours in that market writing poems. There's so many possibilities. We could even be talking to people about poetry while we're doing it, which is something I like to do quite a bit. So these ants you see here, they I bring all that up because your environment and where you're at is everything when it comes to writing. We like to think about poetry as being relegated to the imagination, and it's all in our minds, and it doesn't matter what's around us, but it very much does matter what's around us. That's the thing that I've discovered more than anything about these rituals. That what you've eaten for breakfast matters, how you're feeling matters. So you see these ants, these are from Texas. They are in the Chihuahuan Desert, which is outside of Marfa, Texas, in western Texas. I was down in Marfa, Texas to do a residency with the Lanham Foundation. The artist Donald Judd has most of his artwork is housed down there, and he was living down there. There are many museums and many galleries in that city, that small town, rather, actually, and I love it. I was finished doing the work that I was when I was down there to do, and I thought, well, let me do another ritual. So what I did was I went out to the Chihuahuan Desert, and I found an ant. Let's say it's this one. And I drew a map, and I followed the ant. And as I followed the ant, I would draw around cacti, around pebbles, different various things that this ant had to go around. It had a juniper seed in its mouth, and it was taking it back to the nest all the way around. It was very exciting spending a day with this ant and allowing the ant to show me something new. It's really terrific, that map. I love that map so much. I kind of would love to repeat this ritual one day. It was so exciting. So what I did was, after I had that map, as you can see, all drawn out like that, following the ant, I then began to use the map in different ways. I used it as a sonic translation device, where it was something that when I would put it on its side, I could imagine having this be something phonetically to follow through my voice. I also traced it on my body. My favorite thing that I did, though, with this particular ritual was that I cooked a very long piece of spaghetti, a spaghetti noodle, and I put the spaghetti in the same, as close as I could to the shape of that map that the ant gave me. And then when it was dry, I peeled it off the paper and took it back to the nest. And then I crumbled it up around that nest, around that hole, and I gave it back to the ants. It's absolutely marvelous to spend the day with ants and try to have a conversation with them through their movements, through gestures, and through the things that they're carrying and the maps that you make from following them. This is the poem that I wrote from that experience. It's called Leave Something Quiet in Shell of My Ear. Unfastened in the back seat, a portion of our music is mucus flying into stillness. At what point do we submit to the authority of flowers? At what point after it enters the mouth is it no longer in the mouth but the throat, the colon, making sumptuous death of the world? This is what crossing the line gains. No need to pretend we are the people we want to be in the next life. Bone under tongue drives taste of snow to metal. Sorry I threw up at your wedding. It wasn't from drinking. It was from thinking on mountain all night, waking tangled in spirits of morning light. Our planet floats off emptiness, the undisclosed mirror held to flame, pushed it into a pile of ash, a trail of ash leading us toe to toe with wild sides. What's emerging is a grip we've been reaching for. Please grab hold with us. In the ritual that I did to cure my depression from my boyfriend's murder, I was thinking about the fact that this man changed his name to Earth. He changed his name to Earth at a time when we are destroying the planet. He was not just an AIDS activist, he wasn't just an ACT UP, he was also an environmental activist. And I think that it's a very dark, horrible irony that this man was bound and gagged, tortured, and burned to death in the state of Tennessee at a time when we are doing just that to the planet. It made me think about ecologies. It made me think about the animals who are suffering. And it made me think about what I wanted to do next, to try to confront this, to honor the name and the life of this human being who I cherished. And I decided to do a ritual with extinct animals. So I am 54 years old. So in my lifetime, we have lost 60% of the wild creatures on the planet. That is something that I kept in mind when putting together the idea for this ritual. What I decided to do was to gather the field recordings of recently extinct animals, animals that have become extinct in my lifetime, which, as I said, with 60% loss of the wild creatures, that's a significant number of creatures we're talking about. These field recordings are all available online. Mammalogists, ornithologists, entomologists have been collecting these sounds for many years. What I do is, when I'm traveling across the United States doing this ritual, the main ingredient, the main portion of this ritual is flooding my body with the sounds of these extinct animals. And the way I do it is with two powerful little speakers that I put down at my feet first and then move them up my body. It's one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life. I have to be honest, I originally imagined that this was going to be a depressing experience, listening to extinct animals every day. The absolute opposite has occurred. I'm elated. When I am doing this ritual, I feel nothing but joy, and I can't even understand why, except this is my only answer for that. I believe that the cells of my body are very busy drinking the conversations that these creatures are having in these recordings. And what happens is my cells drink them up. I feel the vibration through my system, through my blood and my bones. I'm writing throughout this process. I'm lying down on the ground while I'm doing this. is something that I have now completed in all the lower 48 states. This map you see of the lower 48 states, this triangle in the middle of this is another portion to the ritual. Let me show you. So you see in these locations here, let me just, you see here, here, and here, Memphis. I buried 4 of these containers. Inside these copper containers, I put crystals: carnelian, amethyst, and rose quartz. There are, all the way up to this level, are crystals. And then I fill the whole bottle with water right up to about here, seal it, and then bury them in these locations is what I did. And then down here in Memphis, Tennessee, Cheyenne, Wyoming. I eat a little bit of dirt, right? And then I can tune in, and then I write. And then I turn clockwise towards Memphis, and then I do the same thing. I listen to an ambient recording of the sounds that were around me at the time when I planted the copper container with the crystals. It's a copper container because copper is conductive, and there is an electrical current that flows through these crystals, and the water helps keep it all together. And I keep about an inch off the top of that bottle for freezing. Then I turn my attention to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and again, I eat a little bit of dirt from that location once I've aligned myself with Cheyenne, and I also listen to an ambient recording. Then I do the whole thing 2 more times. This is one of my absolute favorite rituals that I've ever done. I did a similar one with the artwork of Louise Nevelson, who is a sculptor from New York City. And I did a similar ritual where I planted a little crystal in the ground in Copenhagen, outside of the Louisiana Museum in Copenhagen, Denmark, where one of her sculptures is. I planted a little crystal outside the Philadelphia, the Academy of Fine Arts, the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in Philadelphia, where there's a sculpture. And then I planted another one in Kansas City, Missouri, excuse me. There are many reasons why I like doing these crystal reading rituals, but I have to say, with the extinct animals, kept me focused the entire time. The poems have been keeping me very happy. I have to say that too. I've been enjoying working with the language that comes out of these. Very unexpected language. Nothing that I would have ever written at any other time. Let me just read some of the poems. On all fours, I am a seat for the wind. Most of my family's international travel is being sent to war. If we judge love, we can kill off anything. Dragged by our hair across the days until they make their way inside our dreams, where we get to evict them. I want to thank the one who invented knocking on the door, but no one remembers their name to tattoo across my knuckles. I asked an archaeologist about first time she stuck a shovel in the ground. Her answer had same restorative powers as the gravediggers. When we die, we can no longer wipe the muck off. Just lie there, becoming shit of the world. Eat a chip of your own dried blood. Join me in the cannibal sunshine, fully persuaded by the world through song. Each morning, a blue jay screams at edge of the clear-cut forest. I scream with her at the bleeding stumps. Scream inside something borrowed, like ocean, like skin. I want to see before I die a mink wearing a human scarf, skin from a handsome hairy leg. Meow. How many of these poems do I have? I don't know. You know what? I think I'm going to read this one, and then some brand new ones, and then we're going to some Q&A. Before I read this, I dedicate this to the 4,600 Google employees who wrote a document stating to their CEO that they were no longer going to fulfill military contracts. And that was very brave of them. And to stand up to the military at a time like this is kind of amazing. So these Google employees don't have a union, and they risked everything to do it. And they were very successful, so I want to dedicate this to them. Golden in the morning, crane our necks. In a past life, I was a little fish who cleaned the shells of turtles. In a dream helped me remember their deep voice of thanks. Many nights I heard sharks waiting for the tide to draw me near. When the calendar runs out, it feels lucky another awaits. All I have ever wanted was to forge the English language into a spear and drive it into my heart. Between leaping and being shoved, no lonelier place to put my faith for the swinging motion inside the dance we share. Don the extraordinary suit for this ordinary day. Take our time studying trees to imagine the nests we would build if we were birds. I ask all you talented people, spending many creative hours, perfecting killer drones, guns, and bombs, to please know we are waiting for you on the other side of art, in the no-kill zone. This one's very new. This is a very new one. We vanish into one another as needed for Darawire. In the middle of surgery, the doctor asks if we want to make use of the open chest, feed love notes and lucky numbers to the bird under the ribcage, forever blaming violets adapting beneath mower blades. It is a choice to not be offended when your lover says there is no extra room in a survivalist bunker. Shocked by spaces between molecules we thought were holding us together. Old ghosts moving into the new apartment. My name is Amanda Paradise, a new America in the middle of the failed one, an intestinal expatriate, the kind of bitch who says, no, you're an invasive species, every time they point at a pretty flower and say it is not being pretty in the right place. This is also a fairly new piece. This is for my boyfriend, Trey. This is for Trey, who I've not seen in many days now with this quarantine. Acclimating to discomfort of the system breaking beneath us. I do not take any calls except from the century we are in. When there is no Bible in my hotel room, it makes me sad to have no place to put my filthy poems for future guests. It's important to let them know everyone should burn with abandon as soon as the heat is available. Be it self-styled alarm clock no one can shut off. Be the storm love places in someone's home. Are you sure we can handle this? Because I am absolutely certain. Come on, Win, knock us around. We are a tide that cures ills. Look at us in the mirror. As soon as the invented language enters us, something else will vibrate in our skin, opening door with teeth of the future to the place where we let the freer feeling go. When you told me you had been looking for me, we pressed through every invisible barrier between us. I watched you gently let the gods know you are ready to win the lottery. There were people from the 19th century alive in my lifetime many years ago. I met some of them. They are all gone now, as we hold on to the side of one another, howling down the velocity of seconds. For the feral splendor that remains, for Kazam Ali. Sometimes I strain to hear one natural sound. When gender blurs in a poem, my world sets a tooth in the gear. If God is in me, when will I ask for my needs to be met? Every God is qualified, it's not such a secret. When I was afraid of the road, I learned to drive. Map says, name of your city and ocean, line drawn to it, towing behind the big party. History of life on Earth might be interesting to a visitor one day. Chewing parsley and cilantro together is, for me, where meadow meets forest. In a future life, would we like to fall in love with the world as it is, with no recollection of the beauty we destroyed today? So I had to take this ritual indoors, as you know, because now I can't do the ritual outside. So what I've been doing is every morning I listen to the extinct animal sounds, and I have this giant crystal that I wear around my neck. It's pretty heavy. I don't know how whole it's like. It feels like a guillotine, like it's going to cut my head off, frankly. But it vibrates against my breastbone when I'm doing this. And so so it's a continuation, but these are some of the new pieces. I'll just do a few of these, and then we're going to switch back over to Sophia. So let's see. We have Corona Days 24. For years after friends died of AIDS, they still danced with me in my dreams. Did survivors of the Black Plague dance with their dead? Who will dance with whom in a year? Let's keep safe, dance together in person. A sweet potato's lifespan is short, I understand that, but I still miss her. Corona Day 60. It takes bodies to make this world. There are no dreams without us standing in the middle of what we imagined. For 60 days on the phone, he tells me it hurts to not hold me. Necessity of love and poetry, incontrovertible. My grandmother Pearl said, "Throw your wallet away the moment you lose your job." There were many excuses for losing jobs where I grew up. She was the only person in my family in the 1980s who asked about my dying lovers and friends. She said to me, after a week of 3 funerals, "There is a beginning to this pain. Now you know the middle. But the end too must show itself. When you survive this, love will destroy all doubt." Corona Day 67. 7 years on the road, I am a stray cat now, but only when I am not writing poems. I slept in my car in Walmart parking lots across America. Not one night goes by lately without thinking of the many people, entire families I met, living in cars, with signs in their windshields. We need diapers. We need food. This is one that I wrote when thinking about people who I know who have some addiction problems, and it makes me very sad about them this time being confined like this because they're having a hard time. Corona Day 68. The first time you got high in the morning and stayed there because you fear the cost of caring, because you get sick when you hear about war refugees, because you cannot learn how to undo yourself to hold a job and have friends. But if we can make a world we all want to live in, let's get building. Corona Day 69. Threads who let go encourage others, so the saga of the hole in my sleeve. We cannot even be sick together. List the Hollywood movies devoured by revenge. How can we care so suddenly? Slow down. It is not true. It never will be. that these cells can ever end. I want to share with you just one more of these poems. This is today's poem. Corona Day 73. Impeding someone's creative impulse is a crime against you both. I told them not to be jealous of their daughter becoming an artist. Awakened creative genius is a sacred celebration. Thank you so much. And now we'll reconvene with Sophia.
Thank you so much, CA. This has been so wonderful, so delightful to spend this hour with you. And I just want to, maybe to start, I just want to also thank everyone who's watching and give a few shout outs. I'll start with a shout out to Christopher Gallard, who says, "Rest in peace, sweet potato." And from this, take on some of the questions that were asked. Some of them were really interesting. There's been such a beautiful display of care, of attention to what you've been saying. So I'll just jump straight into one. So to give a bit of context, you've mentioned in your talk that you've been present through the loss of your kith and kin and loved ones, through suicide, through murder, through police brutality. You've been part of ACT UP activism during the 1980s, and you also mentioned that your family in Pennsylvania worked in a coffin factory. So Sandra Clavins and Inez Debola ask if you could tell us more about what it is about presentness, what it is about being present that has been so important to you in sort of foregrounding new vocabularies for pain and fear.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question. That's a good question. Well, I do. I mean, and let me start out by saying, that the problem with this started, of course, from the people who raised me. No fault of theirs, by the way. Of course, they're just living their lives, working in these factories, making various things. I think it's really important that I say to people, you don't have to be raised by factory workers to lose the present. I believe you could be raised by doctors and lawyers and still lose the present in this particular time period we're living in. There's so many distractions around us right now. So how to relocate in the present? I just happen to have this technique that I learned unknowingly, right? So from 1975, I began writing in 1975. From 1975 to 2005, I'm writing in what I call the old-fashioned way, where I'm inspired and I write. But in 2005, I realized that there's this problem. The only way that I can really answer your question is to tell you that once I began doing these rituals to anchor myself in the present for the writing, is that I first had to change my relationship with my writing to then change my relationship with my life and the world around me. And once I began doing that, frankly, Sophia, I fell in love with the world all over again in a new way. And when you begin to see the world anew in that way through the art that you're creating, fear just goes away. The fear that my family has comes from, honestly, I think it comes from the fact that they've lost the present. Well, the thing is about the rituals is that they collapse the walls of time around us. So once you're in the middle of a ritual, something that you've orchestrated, it could be anything. That's what's so exciting about these rituals, that I find out that they really can be anything around you that you return to. Once you get going with that, you can be completely present no matter what's being discussed in front of you, no matter what ideas. I did a ritual where I went back to the town where I grew up, but I was not allowed to write any memoir. It wasn't about memoir. It was about being present with the feelings that I was having at that moment, that were, of course, mixed up with the past, but I wanted to be present. I didn't want to be writing about the past. I wanted to be completely present. Well, here's the thing. We have spent so much time in our culture separating the mind from the body, when in fact they've never been separated. It's exciting that we're living in this time period now where that's coming back together, but we've spent an enormous amount of effort and time separating them and saying the mind, the body, when actually the mind is the body. So with the latest research on the brain, we're now able to understand that it's a very physical process, and it's connected to every other physical process that we own and have, that we call our bodies and our lives, right? So to never be able to separate them again is the goal, right? That's, for me, the goal at least. But what we find out is, this is what's very exciting, what we find out is that memory is not just in the brain. Memory is in the tissue, memory is in our muscles, memory is in our bones, it's in the very blood that flows through us. And if you've ever had extensive body work, like massage therapy or acupuncture for an extended period of time, you begin to release memories, you begin to release trauma from the body. And what's exciting is that the more work we do on ourselves, the more room we make inside of ourselves for more ritual, more magic, more art, more understanding about the way this world works. The more we understand about how our bodies work, the more we can understand about how everything around us works. I know that when I was doing the ritual to cure my depression, this is probably the best way for me to answer that question. It took a little while to integrate the ritual into my trauma and the experiences, but as soon as it linked up, as soon as I could feel that connection, I started to change. I started to completely change my life. Here's how I know it worked. So prior to the ritual, I was having not just nightmares at night, but I had this sort of movie in my head that I created where the police were finally being nice, which is a joke, and the killers were captured, and there's a courtroom drama, and I basically had this little movie in my head to torture myself with, I just would play in my head. But once I started doing this ritual, about a week into the ritual, the movie disappeared. I never saw it again. So what it did was the ritual helped my mind and my body and my present experience all come together very cleanly and carefully and safely, I should also say. Because to be trying to get that kind of trauma out of your system is not easy. And not only is it not easy, it's a little terrifying. It was terrifying that it went in the first place, but getting it out is just as terrifying. But here's what I found out. It's the easiest thing in the world once you get to that point. And once I allow the ritual to guide the experience. So I guess I'm going to just say that the ritual did most of the work for me. I guess that's the way to answer it. Without that ritual, I would have never been able to do it. I believe that this culture that we're living in is designed to destroy our creativity. But I'm also here to tell you that it's very easy to find your way back. That's one of my goals. I think that's one of the reasons I came to the planet, frankly, this time, was to not only find it for myself, but to show others. Because creativity is everything. Creativity is the most important thing. We need to be thinking of it as a vital organ in our bodies. When I think of the poet Robert Desnos in the 20th century in France, being captured by the Nazis and being dragged to Auschwitz as a prisoner, and I think of him going throughout these different death camps as a prisoner, writing his poems, studying what the guards were doing. Do you know this story? Are you familiar with this story? So let me just very briefly tell this because I feel like it's very important. Desnos winds up in Treblinka as a prisoner in Hitler's death camps. He's studying these guards because the guards are human beings, and the guards are protecting themselves from what they're doing to the prisoners. So one day, the guards appear with a truck, and they load Desnos and the other prisoners onto this truck, and they are on their way to the gas chamber to kill everybody on that truck. And Desnos knows this. He understands what's going on. So, but because he is the poet, because he is the creative mind who's been writing poems every day, yeah, and keep in mind the Nazis were not handing out notebooks and pens. So he was using scraps of paper with like fingernail clippings to write and dirt. That's how he was writing. But it kept his mind, his creative skills sharp the whole time. So that when they were needed at this very critical moment, he knew what to do. So as the guards are unloading everybody from this truck, he jumps off first and he grabs the hands of his fellow inmates and begins reading their palms, because he was a palm reader. You know, he was a surrealist, and Andre Breton, you know, as you know, denounces him, but in the Second Surrealist Manifesto. But Robert Desnos was a palm reader as well. So he's reading their palms and he's reading the lifelines, and he's saying, "You, madam, have a very long lifeline. You are going to live a long life and have grandchildren and retire." He's saying this in German for the sake of the guards. The guards are very angry. They're trying to get him to stop, but they can't get him to stop. And what happens is he breaks through the guard's shell. And by continuing to do this, the guards can't kill these people, because he's using their names, and he's saying they're going to live, and they're going to live long lives. The guards load all these people back up to on that truck and send them back. And 2 weeks later, the Allied forces liberate this camp, and all of these people for half a century have been telling us about the poet who figured out how to rescue all these lives one day without one single bullet fired. It takes creativity to survive something like that. And Robert Desnos figured it out. And the reason he figured it out is because he was writing poems the whole time he was in this death camp. To ask about magic, it's almost like asking, like, is language magic? Is poetry magic? Is the world around us? Everything is. I mean, what's exciting is when you start looking deeply at the molecules around you. I have a microscope that I put into these rituals, so I start looking. I'll look at something far away with binoculars, then walk toward it, and then eventually get the microscope out and look deeply inside the molecules of that thing. We are living at this moment where we are able to see all of these things, and in doing so, we can see that magic, in a way, is just science that's not caught up with the world yet, you know, and the possibilities of what we can do for one another and for ourselves with ritual and poetry and art of all kind. By the way, I work with visual artists as well, not just poets, and these rituals lend to any type of discipline or any genre within the discipline that I've found. I don't think I've really answered that question very well. But yes, I believe that. I believe that magic is in front of us all the time.